Well, to shed more light on this title, we have the pleasure to have this phono with His Excellency Ambassador Ayoub, Mahmoud Ayoub, Minister Commercial. Good afternoon, Your Excellency.
Good afternoon to you.
Well, Your Excellency Ambassador Ayoub, now over the 40 countries are participating in this or expressed interest to participate and join the BRICS. Of them, nearly 24 have formally asked to be admitted. How did you read this?
I read it from economic point of view. We know that BRICS has been established 2006 by an initiative from President Putin. It was 4 countries in the beginning, and later on South Africa joined, and now it is 5 countries. When these many countries, 20 or 21 or 40 countries, are applying to join BRICS, this means that BRICS is a new economic bloc or economic mutually beneficial bloc which will override Bretton Woods deliberations, Bretton Woods agreements, the World Trade Organization, and it is a new entity which will enable these countries, these 40 countries, about 40 countries, to have mutually beneficial relations as far as trade and economic development is concerned. This is one thing. Other thing is that the domination of dollar or US on the international economy or international trade is diminishing step by step now. When we see that Egypt already participated in the capital of the BRICS bank, this means that Egypt is serious in this respect, and these countries are devising a new way for trade between themselves, between each other, that is using the local currencies instead of the dollar. These are very important and vital developments which will positively reflect on the relations between the BRICS countries.
Yes. Yes. Your Excellency Ambassador Ayoub, also concerning the participation of Egypt in the BRICS summit, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli is participating on the behalf of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, representing Egypt, of course. So give us an idea about your insight concerning Egypt's participation.
It is important that President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is delegating Prime Minister Madbouli to be his representative in this important meeting. Why? Because Egypt has a role to play in the Middle East, in Africa, and between Arab countries.
Yes.
Egypt already applied for BRICS, and it will be admitted, inshallah. And this will reflect positively on economic development in Egypt, on investment in Egypt, and also on bilateral and multilateral relations between Egypt and BRICS countries, which are a new economic bloc and a strong one. When I say strong one, it constitutes 40% of world population, 23% of gross domestic product of the world. Now, in the year 2030, the percentage will highly exceed these figures. Yes. So it is an important economic bloc which Egypt early joining, and it will be successful in this respect.
Yes, Your Excellency Ambassador Ayoub, the BRICS summit is taking place during these 3 days, current 3 days, with the Ukraine-Russia war in the background. Not in the background, actually. Now the war extended for more than 1 year, past 1 year, affecting the economy of the whole world. So give us an idea about this point, please.
The Ukrainian war has been more than 1 year now,
yes,
and it's still there. So we have to devise a new way to surpass or overtake the developments which the chains of supply were disrupted, especially for the wheat and the grains were disrupted. So we need to find a new way for mutual cooperation between BRICS countries to supersede or to overtake the aftermath of Ukrainian war. And Egypt, in this respect, has been very attentive to the fact that we need to find substitutes and alternative ways to ensure the supply of grains to Egypt, about 6 million tons a year. And other countries are supplying wheat and grains, and Egypt is also bilaterally having agreements with these countries to ensure the permanent and stable supply of grains to Egypt. And at the same time, the Ukrainian war is in Europe. But we cannot say that it affects Europe only, but it affects the whole world. Egypt is part of this whole world, but Egypt is maneuvering to find its place between the big countries or big economies of the world through the BRICS agreement, which we will join this year, inshallah.
Yes, Your Excellency Ambassador Ayoub, analysts have said that the bloc has at times suffered from internal divisions and also the lack of coherent vision. What was the reason behind this?
Egypt is part of Africa, and African countries have a role to play. Africa is about 1.5 billion people, so they have a role to play on the international economy, and especially when a good number of African countries are joining now BRICS, like South Africa is established with charter member, Egypt is one, Algeria is another, and Ethiopia and Nigeria are also applying to BRICS. So African countries have a role to play, and they need to have the right share of the international economy and the international trade. Egypt is keen to expand its relations and so to have sustained and permanent relationship with these countries to ensure the supply and also ensure a wide market for Egyptian exports.
Yes. Your Excellency Ambassador Ayoub, how does the BRICS summit would contribute to enhancing trade and also enhancing investment among the member countries?
This is the most important part of the BRICS summit in South Africa. When the Prime Minister Madbouli is there to ensure that Egypt has a role to play and will be benefiting from more cooperation with the 40, let's say about 40 countries will constitute the new BRICS. Besides the 5 charter countries, 35 countries are now applying, and the big number of countries will ensure that Egypt has a better access to the investment market, which is very important for Egypt. This is one thing. Other thing which is very important is that Egypt is also ensuring that it will have wider market for its projects. So I hope that this will be positively reflected on relations between Egypt and other BRICS countries.
Yes. Your Excellency Ambassador Ayoub, now this is the 15th edition of the BRICS Summit. So what were the achievements of the BRICS Summit that we can see on the ground in the past years?
In the past year, we have seen that the trade between BRICS countries, the 5 countries I mean, has increased substantially. And at the same time, the new applicants are increasing their presence in the BRICS markets, and this will enhance better cooperation, more investment, at the same time widening the markets for example, for the Egyptian exports. Instead of being confined to a limited number of countries, now it has a wider space for Egyptian exports, which is vital for the Egyptian economy.
Yes, Your Excellency Ambassador Ayoub, what are the major outcomes or declarations that could result from the BRICS summit?
Well, the BRICS the meetings will be from 22 to 24. So we are waiting the results. But the most important thing is that these countries have strong will and intention to increase investment between themselves, trade between themselves, and creating more beneficial economic cooperation between the countries outside Bretton Woods agreements and the IMF and World Bank, which was monopolizing the world economy since 1945 until yesterday.
Yes. Your Excellency, Ambassador Ayoub, now we spoke about the tensions provoked by the Ukraine and Russia war. That is growing day by day, I mean. How do you see this in light of the differences between China and the United States? How would this make the BRICS very important and strengthens its emergency in that it should be going stronger?
China, Russia, and India are big economic powers in the world. So not only the United States, but these three countries. When these three economies, as I mentioned, Russia, China, and India,
yes,
are coming together to hold their hands together to enhance cooperation outside the domination of the dollar. I will not say the United States, but rather of the dollar. This means that these countries have a stake in having more cooperation between themselves outside the domination of the dollar and the Western powers. So it is a new trend which will affect, which will positively reflect on economic relations between these 5 countries and the 35 countries who are applying, including Egypt, who are applying for membership to the BRICS countries, and it will have a positive results as far as Egypt is concerned.
Yes. Grouping already home for some 40% of the world's population and a quarter of the global GDP. How do you weigh its importance as an introduction of a new economic bloc or rather world order?
When we can say it is a bloc, but rather it is a group. Well, we prefer to call it a grouping of emerging economies. China is there, India is there, Russia and China and South Africa there, and Egypt will be included very soon. And this means these economies will have a better chance of direct cooperation between themselves and also direct investment, which is very important for Egypt. And this will reflect positively on the economies of each of these countries, including Egypt.
Yes. How would boosting the use of member states' local currencies, which is on the agenda of the BRICS summit, impact the economies of some nations?
Using the local currency, which I mentioned earlier, using the local currency in clearing the accounts for trade between and investment between these countries helps each of them, and also increases the chances for the foreign investors to come, let us say, to Egypt and invest, and from Egypt can also invest in other countries for its products and for its markets and for its direct investment in these countries. And this will positively reflect on the global volume of trade outside the dollar bloc, if we say dollar bloc. So yes, it is a new bloc in the, or let's say grouping, which will be stronger than the older one, which was dominated by the dollar.
Yes. Your Excellency, Ambassador Ayoub, the South African Summit organizers say there will be say there will be no discussions of BRICS currency, an idea floated by Brazil earlier this year as an alternative to dollar dependence. So why, in your opinion, is this issue not on the agenda?
It is a controversial issue, so it is better to avoid the controversial issues at this stage. It can be handled step by step and gradually, and we can cut it to pieces and deal with it like that. So let us focus, or let this country, and this is what is happening now during the 3 days deliberations in South Africa, on the main issues outside the thorny issues which can be can raise disagreement. So yes, let us agree on the agreed upon issues and cooperate in this respect. And after that, we can come bilaterally or multilaterally to the other issues, which are, at this stage it is premature to handle it. Better to postpone it until we establish a strong presence of relations, strong relations between these countries.
Yes, I thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your valuable information, Your Excellency, Ambassador Ayoub, Mahmoud Ayoub, Minister of Commercial. Thank you very much for joining us over the phone. Well, with this, my dear viewers, we come to the end of this episode of our program, Cairo Local Time. My name is Amal Mukhtar. Thank you for watching.